Bonjour. I would like to call this meeting to order. Bienvenue à la 48e réunion du comité permanent.
To the 48th meeting
On the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Notre réunion aujourd'hui
Our meeting today will take place in a hybrid format.
Virtually, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. You may speak in the official language of your choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting in French, English, and Inuktitut in the first hour, and Plains Cree in the second. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of using the globe icon of either floor, English, or French. Please select your language now, and if interpretation is lost, let us know and we'll try to get it back. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself, and those in the room, well, your mic will be controlled as normal by the Proceedings and Verification Officer. S'il vous plaît, adressez-vous.
Please speak through the chairperson.
Speak slowly and clearly, and when you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. With regard to a speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do our best to maintain consolidated order of speaking for all members, although we've already pre-established that for today. I have just one housekeeping matter before we start. The next study, as per the motion adopted on November 21st, 2022, is the study of improving graduation rates and successful outcomes for Indigenous students, also known as the Education Study. Please submit your witness lists, organized by priority and by party, to the clerk by February the 8th, please. So with that, pursuant to Standing Order 108-2 and the motion adopted by the committee on November the 21st, the committee is resuming its study of Indigenous languages. This is our third meeting. Today, our first panel who will join us, and I'd like to welcome them, are Minister R.J. Simpson, Government House Leader, Minister of Education, Culture and Employment, and Minister of Justice for the Government of the Northwest Territories, appearing virtually. Le Dr. Megan.
We also have Dr. Megan Lukaniuk, linguist from the Huron-Wendat Nation Council, by video conference.
Ida Baer of the University of Manitoba, also by video conference. For our witnesses, the way we proceed is that you will have 5 minutes to each of you to make an introductory set of comments, and then we will proceed with a first round of questions. Try to keep your speaking remarks at 5 minutes to allow the most time possible for questions. With that, Minister Simpson, if you are ready, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Minister Simpson, you're on mute. We can't hear you, sir.
So we're not hearing you, Minister. So we'll go to the second witness, and perhaps we can fix the problem in the meantime. Alors, Dr.
So we have Dr. Megan Lukaniuk. If you're ready, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Very much. My name is Dr. Megan Lukaniuk. I'm a member of the Huron-Wendat Nation situated in Wendake, Quebec, and I'm a linguist for our nation. I'm honored to be here to discuss the Indigenous Languages Act and the impacts of that act on our community and our language. And our language called Wendat became dormant over a century ago. But since 2007, we have been reawakening our language through the careful analysis of archival documentation. As of right now, for our nation, there has been no positive impact of the passing of the Indigenous Languages Act. No funding model has changed. This funding was and still is project-based. And furthermore, we have not been contacted by or have been in communication with the Office of the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages. The only change that we have experienced with the passing of this act is actually an increase of service work, being called upon to participate in numerous consultation sessions, both prior to and after the passing of the act. And despite many of the important and insightful comments that I've heard in these sessions since 2018, I have not seen any of these changes implemented thus far. I humbly present 3 recommendations to this committee. The first recommendation is to pass amendments to this act, since it has no teeth and is more or less symbolic. I'll give you an example of that. Article 5D reads that the purpose of the act is to establish measures to facilitate the provision of adequate, sustainable, and long-term funding. But that's actually not the same as committing to provide adequate, sustainable, and long-term funding. And right now, that means that this funding is dependent on the goodwill of the federal government in power. It is also very non-committal in terms of language rights. We need a commitment that we have the right to educate our youth in our language. And it's especially important here in Quebec with the passing of Bill 96. So these rights are mentioned, but they're not explicitly stated in the Act. And I also would point you to the legal brief of Gariwageru Tim Thompson of Yellowhead Institute, who provides some thoughtful critique of the Act. My second recommendation for you for this is to change the funding model, to get rid of short-term project funding and its associated problematic measures. So prior to funding from Heritage Canada, we actually had a 5-year grant from SSHRC, from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. That was a partnership between our nation and Université Laval. We had exponential growth during that period of time, since for the first time we could plan our activities for 5 years rather than a single year or even 2. And we could change and modify the project activities to fit our actual needs, which often change from the needs that we estimate at the time of submitting a grant application. Now, since we started depending on funding from Heritage Canada, that was roughly in 2012, our language work has really stagnated. We are stuck on a roller coaster of a grant cycle. And in some ways, I believe that this funding has actually set us back rather than moved us forward over the past decade. The application processing delays are inexcusably long. We once waited 11 months from the time of submission to the time of acceptance of the grant. And of course, the deadlines don't change necessarily. You have to ask for extensions. And there's very little flexibility in changing the project activities or the timelines, and no recognition of how their delays impact us in our work and in our language planning. But the bigger reality is that we don't want to do projects. The work that we're doing in our community to revitalize our language is not a project. It shouldn't need to be packaged into something new and shiny each grant cycle with deliverables that need to be sent to Canadian Heritage after the fact. Instead, we really hope that the federal government could fund full operating budgets for a period of at least 5 years to reawaken and revitalize our language, and not projects with deliverables that are counted according to metrics designed by someone else. My third recommendation for you is to increase the funding to at least match what is provided to official languages. So in the words of the Indigenous language champion, Dr. Onao McIver, who talks about this very issue in her 2013 article, she says it takes greater resources to rebuild something than it does to destroy it. And with amounts up to $300,000 per year, the funding we receive now is more of a token of support than actual support. We know that our languages are not being funded at the same level as English and French. We're being told as much during these consultation sessions when we're being asked to provide criteria that will be used to choose amongst the best grant applications. Please don't make us compete against one another for essential funding that is needed to support our languages. We need this funding to undo the harm that the federal government and its other colluding agents have caused to our language. And we would like to have at least the same, if not more, than what is provided to English and French, because it does cost more to rebuild. So in conclusion, it's been almost 4 years since the Act has passed. We've been waiting patiently. We are still without any adequate, sustainable, recurring, and long-term funding for our language. The current funding amounts and current funding model are both unacceptable and will not permit us to affect real change in our community in terms of language revitalization. We are now coming up against a funding gap since we had a 2-year grant from Heritage Canada that will end on March 31st. But there's no other funding calls that are available, despite the fact that we were told that these new funding models would come into effect of spring of last year in 2022. So I implore you to act, and to act fast, because we're doing all we can on our end to sustain and nourish our language. but we really need the federal government to commit itself to help us rebuild from the damage they caused to our language. And we need this financial support, and we need it now. Tohiyoti. That is all.
Thank you, Dr. Lukanyuk. We'll now go to Minister Simpson. Minister, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, and
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Danete, zi nezi, bonjour. Thank you for inviting me here today. The Northwest Territories is the only political region in Canada which recognizes 11 official languages. Of these languages, 9 are Indigenous. Dene Sulane Yatye, Nahiawewin, Chinchi Chu Kinchik, Inuinaktun, Inuktitut, Inuvialuktun, Dene Kede, Dene Jatye, and Tlicho Yati, with many different dialects throughout our 33 communities. The NWT Official Languages Act sets out the roles and responsibilities of the ministerially appointed language boards that represent the 11 official language communities, the Languages Commissioner, and the Government of the Northwest Territories. And it provides legal protection to assist in preserving culture as expressed through language. The Act states that everyone has a right to receive government services in the language they speak. Each of our Indigenous languages articulates the ways of knowing, being, and doing, and believing that are unique to their own communities and histories. This is why it is so important to work to ensure that our children and youth retain a strong connection to their language and who they are. It is our responsibility as a government and as individual citizens to protect, strengthen, and promote our languages, to ensure that we are a territory in which Indigenous languages are supported, respected, and thriving. The Government of the Northwest Territories provides approximately $15 million per year to Indigenous governments in the NWT, communities, and education bodies. Combined with the $5.9 million from the 2021 to 2024 Canada NWT Agreement on Indigenous Languages, the GNWT distributes approximately $21 million towards the promotion, preservation, and revitalization of Indigenous languages each year. Funding provided through the GNWT is used to support language revitalization programs for individuals and communities, and is also distributed directly to governments, communities, and education bodies to develop and provide their own language revitalization programs. Our work is guided by input from our language partners, and over the years, we have learned that this coordination is essential to the success of achieving our shared vision. We have built relationships based on trust and transparency to find solutions that work within the unique context of the Northwest Territories. The Federal Indigenous Languages Act provides room for a variety of Indigenous language revitalization and protection efforts, and from a legislative perspective, aligns well with the NWT's Official Languages Act. However, the GNWT would like to see improved coordination of funding for language revitalization and service delivery initiatives to improve efficiency and better support strategic objectives in our territory. Although additional support for language revitalization is welcome, the current disparate approach to program funding has contributed to issues of duplication and persistent capacity issues that limit revitalization work. To be clear, I am not advocating for the redirection of funds from Indigenous governments to the Government of the Northwest Territories, but for enhanced coordination. The Government of the Northwest Territories would like to work more closely with Canada and our Indigenous government partners to support strategic objectives, create efficiencies, and help address the lack of capacity across our language communities. Although we see general alignment with our legislation, several areas of the Indigenous Language Act at this time are not clearly defined. The use of terms such as support, access to services, sufficient demand, and capacity. Not having these terms properly defined makes the impact of these requirements hard to judge. The Government of the Northwest Territories understands that our Indigenous languages need support, particularly those spoken in rural Indigenous communities. Beyond dollars, capacity issues must be strategically addressed for revitalization funding to be effectively spent. For instance, currently only 2 out of our 7 regional Indigenous language coordinator positions are filled across Indigenous governments in the Northwest Territories, which poses significant challenges to implementing revitalization programs across our territory. Greater coordination between Canada, the GNWT, and Indigenous governments could help identify and target such issues in a more systematic and strategic way. I would like to thank committee for inviting me to provide feedback on this important initiative, and I look forward to continued coordination of funding for language revitalization and service delivery initiatives with the Government of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Simpson. We will now go to Dr. Ida Baer of the University of Manitoba. Doctor, you have 5 minutes.
My Western name is Ida Baer, and I am at University of Winnipeg, not University of Manitoba. Okay, I just wanted to do a qualifying statement. In 1967, I got involved in language and culture work. And I remember sitting down on a Saturday afternoon with a few other people that were concerned about our languages in the communities, and were separated north and south. The south of Manitoba has better access to resources. The north does not. At the time in 1967, 66, our schools were still federal schools. It was not until 73, 74 that we began to take control of our schools. And I have seen history in the making. I am in my winter years, and I've seen development over the long time. I've been a school teacher in a public school system, and then also I have been teaching for many, many years at the post-secondary level. One thing that I wanted to congratulate the federal government is on the Languages Act, and it's been a long time coming. When we were sitting down, 8 of us, and we're saying, we should have our languages protected like the French. And I just have to have my timer on here. And it was more like a wishful thinking at the time, and because nobody was listening to us when we were sitting at the Department of Education, the provincial government, and we were teaching English as a second language, and then we had the bilingual programs. All the kids that came to school spoke the language. We knew that the language was safe and healthy in the communities if the little ones came to school at age 4. Fast forward it for 2023. You can go to any school in Manitoba, you will not have one student speaking their language, whether it's Dakota, Dene, Inuktitut, Michif, Cree, my language, Ojibwe Cree, and Ojibwe. We have 7 language groups in Manitoba, and we're divided north and south. I myself, as a community person and also as a grandmother and a great-grandmother, I was really quite surprised when I got an invitation to appear before the standing committee. And I said, I don't know anything about what happened with legislation. All I know was in 2018, that there was this discussion about the Languages Act and what it would do. Certainly, it's not as efficient because it's only been in operation since 2019. The work of language disintegration and culture has been in the making for 500 years. And so with this Languages Act, then I kind of sat back and said, it's going to take a while before we see progress. I know because it took a long time for us to get moving in looking at language and culture, working with our communities to say, language is important, and so is culture. And for myself, I'm the last remaining person in my generation from where I come from that has knowledge of language and culture as it was before modernization took place, okay? We have different things happening in Indigenous communities, and it's all modern. And I think people from the past would be very shocked to see the kind of things that are being done in languages and culture. Good intentions. So with that, I wanted to make that point that many of us have been in this work a long, long, long time. And I said, finally, we have a Languages Act, but it's too bad I didn't know anything about it after it was passed and how funding was taking place. So yesterday and today, I quickly got some information, and thank God for the internet. You can access information quickly as you can for languages information. So I looked for the NISCA. And as a student, I loved Frank Calder because he had the Nisga'a language, and the elders recognized that they could go to court and use their oral history. I'm a storyteller by trade. I said, yeah, now, like years down the road, like, the Nisga'a got quite a lot of money to do documentation. And they've done the process, with Thomas Berger and so forth, when they were negotiating for their land claims. And we didn't have that here in Manitoba. It was just us little groups that got together and said language is so important. And we initiated the bilingual program in 1973, and we ran that for about 5, 6, 7 years with the federal government and the provincial government doing a joint program. And that was with Title IV. 1964, in the States, a whole bunch of people went down to Rough Rock and Window Rock to look at the bilingual program. The scariest thing is that we were trying to teach English. None of the children spoke English in our schools. Fast forward today, none of the kids speak their Indigenous language. Okay? So we do have funding, and I got the list, and I have just a few seconds. I think that there has to be a better coordination of looking at the funding proposals. It's got to be tighter. And also the community. And I don't mean the chief and council or the mayor's office or anything. I'm talking about community people, that they have to be made aware what language planning is, the role of language, and then get themselves organized and structured. So that they can better able to have efficient language retrieval programs. And also the last point, and my clock is going here, internet. We have really big issues with internet service for our northern communities. I teach at a virtual high school here, and our biggest communities cannot get online because they can't access the internet to hook up with us, and we teach language and culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baer, and apologies for getting your university wrong, the University of Winnipeg. So we'll now go with the first round of questions, and we'll begin with Mr. Melillo for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us today for this important discussion and being a part of the study. And I thank you all for your testimony so far. What struck me is that each of the opening remarks really touched on the coordination aspect of the programs coming from the federal government. And Dr. Lukaniuk, you mentioned sort of the lack of a positive impact or from the Indigenous Languages Act. You mentioned the need for language rights and to pass some amendments to sort of beef that up. I find this very interesting for a number of reasons and very concerning for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that we've seen a lot of reports from the Parliamentary Budget Officer and the Auditor General recently pertaining to Indigenous services and how there's, over the last number of years, there's been a lot of resources and dollars allocated, but not necessarily the commensurate increase in the results. And that I think that's a major gap that we're experiencing and that we're seeing across the country, and I think each of you pointed that out quite rightly. So with that in mind, thinking about the results and the outcomes that we obviously need to be striving towards, and Dr. Lukaniuk, I'll come back to you again, since you started off. You mentioned the need to pass some amendments for the Indigenous Languages Act in order to strengthen it, and I'm wondering if you could speak in more detail to some of those specific amendments.
Yes, Tiawak, thank you. I think that there's two that are pretty concerning. One is is the way in which the Act doesn't speak directly to the heart of what the purpose is. So in the purpose of the Act is to establish measures to provide, to facilitate the provision of. So never is there a specific point where it says that the federal government is committed to providing funding for adequate, sustainable, and long-term funding for Indigenous languages. It appears in the preamble, but it does not appear in the purpose of the Act. And the other piece of it is with respect to language rights. It's mentioned that that there are specific points at which language rights, the Indigenous language rights, are a piece that should be looked at, and that the Indigenous Language Act would support Indigenous language rights, but just did not explicitly describe those rights. And that is pretty problematic, especially here in Quebec with Bill 96 and with the fact that now we're seeing this encroachment of French language on Indigenous languages. And Indigenous languages, we are not the threat to French. English is the threat to French, not Indigenous languages. And so we're in a different situation here in Quebec as well. And so those amendments would be particularly helpful for those of us here in Quebec. With this encroachment.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. And just in the interest of time, I'll try to move through to the rest of the witnesses as well. Minister, you mentioned as well the need for improved coordination of funding, and I'm curious if you could speak to that as well. And in your experience, I'm curious about your experience of how the federal government has worked, obviously with the government of your territory, but as well with the Indigenous governments within it as well. Some of the successes, some of the things that have not gone so well. If you can speak to those.
Thank you very much. I won't speak too much to the operational side of the collaboration, because I don't really get to see that side. But I know there are instances where I will look at the news and I will realize that the federal government, gave millions of dollars to Indigenous governments for Indigenous language revitalization, which is great. I have no issue with that. But when it comes as a surprise, it's clear that there is a lack of coordination. We've developed good relationships with the Indigenous governments in the Northwest Territories, and we're all working together to revitalize languages. To bring the government of Canada into that fold as well, I think would go a long way. And I want to make very clear, I don't want to step on the toes of Indigenous governments. If they prefer a nation-to-nation relationship, then that's fine. But we have been working well together, and I know there is more that we can do. There are a number of programs that we've been running, and some have been successful at really sparking a lot of interest and passion for languages in communities. We have a mentor-apprentice program that pairs language learners with those who have a language, and speaking with people in that program, I really see that I think we're at a turning point now where this generation is really invested in language, and the younger people are making an effort to learn their language, and they're passing that on to their children. So I know someone who's just learning the language, they're in their 30s, their 2-year-old is more fluent than them now. So it's almost skipped a generation. So we are making progress, but we just need to work a little more closely. Thank you. And I will say that I'll follow up with a written response from the operational side of that as well. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I don't really have a whole lot more time, but maybe just a quick question for you, Minister, on that coordination aspect. Is it sort of along the lines of the federal government perhaps not being responsive or understanding some of the specific realities of the communities in the territory, or where do you find that lack of coordination from that perspective?
Well, I respect the fact that the Government of Canada wants to work directly with Indigenous governments, and like I said, I wouldn't stand in the way of that. But to have the conversation of how we can work more closely, I think would get us moving in the right direction. Because once we start having those conversations, we ultimately get to where we need to go, and we do work together better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melillo. We'll now go to Mr. McLeod for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the presenters here today. I think I'm probably, at least I'm the only MP that attended Indian residential school, and the language that was spoken there was the strap. And everybody that spoke anything other than English was strapped. So my parents spoke 3 languages. They spoke the Métis French, they spoke English, and they spoke the Dene language, or the Indigenous language. By the time I left school, I could only speak 2, even though I didn't speak English until I started school at 6 years old. My children can only speak 1. So now, if I want to go back and try to learn the languages, I can go to a nice facility and learn English. I can go to a nice facility and learn French, but there's no place for me to go to learn the Indigenous Dene language. And that's the same for my children. So I listened with interest to Dr. Lukenyak when she talked about funding parity. I believe it's going to be a real challenge for us to save some of these languages. So I just wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit more about what it's going to take compared to what's being invested to the French and the English language to save some of the Indigenous languages.
Tawak for this question. Pour cette question. I had French in my head. So I think that there's a lot more that's involved. So I think this kind of metaphor of rebuilding is kind of a useful one to think of here, because we're not just simply going to be able to go on the internet and, for language teachers and find materials to teach for English or French, pull it into the classroom, have support, have environments where students can be immersed in the language outside. Those things don't exist. Those supports don't exist. Those resources don't exist. We need to build them. And for my community, without speakers, and we're trying to build a new generation of speakers, that takes an enormous amount of time. So we need a funding for research. For research, we need funding for curriculum development. We need funding for teacher training. We need funding for accreditation. We need funding to build a language authority, and to actually pay individuals to be hired to be in full-time adult immersion programs, kind of like the programs that exist at Oswego, Six Nations, or at Kahnawake. And so that's kind of where we would like to head. But with the current funding that we have, there's nothing that's going to get us even close to that. Yet we know that we're not being provided even adequate funding for a minimum of things that we need to do, for essential things that we need to do in order to reawaken our language. And the budgets compared from English and French to Indigenous languages, it's, when you think about how many Indigenous languages are here in Canada compared to just 2 colonial languages that have caused this damage, it really is shocking to think of the disparity between the budgets that are allocated by the federal government.
I probably could ask you a dozen more questions here, but I wanted to ask R.J. Simpson, who's joined us from my neck of the woods, a couple of questions. I'd like to, first of all, acknowledge that today is the first day of Indigenous Language Month in the NBT. So I'd like to say masicho to RJ for appearing. I was quite happy last year. We announced $17.7 million from the Government of Canada to support the Canada Northwest Territories Agreement on Indigenous languages. And as the minister has indicated, we have 9 Indigenous languages, official languages, but there's more. The Michif language that we heard about the other day doesn't get recognized in the Northwest Territories, and there's several others. And a number of these languages are still being spoken in the communities, but if you talk to the elders, they say a lot of the language is now being watered down. The younger people are speaking a different version. The language is not as strong. So I'd like to ask the minister if you could explain how the GNBT is working with those communities, like the Gwich'in communities, because the Gwich'in language is expected to disappear in 10 years if we continue the way we're going. I'd like to ask him how he's working with those communities where the language is actually being threatened.
Thank you, MP McLeod. And I will say that I'm in a similar boat to MP McLeod, that my grandfather spoke 4 or 5 different languages, and now it's down to 1. I've lost all of my traditional languages as well. So the government of the Northwest Territories provides funding to the different Indigenous governments around the Northwest Territories for Indigenous language and education coordinators. And those are positions that all work together across the territory to ensure that we have the capacity to do certain things. Because a lot of communities, they have very small language communities within them, and they don't have the capacity to do that work. So that is one way that we provide support to them. The Gwich'in that's an example of a government that is doing a lot on their own as well, and we're happy to support them in kind whenever we can. We have a number of different ways that we support organizations. There's broadcasting support for radio stations. So if a community wants to have their Indigenous language over the airways, we have support for that. There's professional development support. There's all sorts of different things that we do, and I can provide a list of all of our supports and how we fund them to committee in form of writing as well. Recognizing the time. Thank you.
Your time is up. Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Nous irons maintenant Madame Gill.
Ms. Gill, you now have 6 minutes. The floor is yours. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. I'd like to thank all of the witnesses who are in attendance today. I should say right off the bat that there are several points in common among the testimony. The linguistic impoverishment, as the Minister just underscored. I had ancestors that used to speak several languages, including Indigenous languages and French and English. And now, unfortunately, it's only French and English that's spoken in the household. And I understand how this has occurred. And I understand what Dr. Lukanich said, who spoke about the notion of dormancy, not a dead language per se, but a language that is dormant, that needs resuscitating, if you will. And that was highly interesting. Oftentimes we get the sense that all languages are spoken languages, but all one has to do is, that all you have to do is buy a textbook to learn a language. But it's far more complicated than that. I'd like to hear more about funding. Apparently, it's more easy to get grants or funding through the SSHRC. There was legislation that was enacted in 2009. Everyone agrees that it doesn't have enough teeth. It provides advice and direction, but there's no obligation. And I know that the other witnesses who also chimed in and talked about languages that are being lost. What can we do? Even though there was legislation that was enacted, even though it's been 4 years, surely there's more that we can do. What can we do in short order to help these languages that are dormant? And now, you are a linguist, Dr. Lukanich. Perhaps you are the best positioned to shed light on this phenomenon. Thank you. Well, yes, it is highly complicated to resuscitate or reawaken a language that is dormant, and it takes a lot of money to achieve that. Now, the other issue, given the current funding model under Canadian Heritage and the SSHRC, Social Sciences Humanities Research Council, unfortunately, we're unable to measure the output in terms of over the course of months and years, the results, the outcomes. And unfortunately for a lot of Indigenous communities is that's the unfortunate reality. We can only measure outcomes over decades. And so, therefore, it's difficult to engage in projects that only enjoy 9 months of funding, for example. So I think that there needs to be adjustments made in terms of the funding model. We never reach the outcomes that we want, given the current timeframes in terms of funding. So, as I said, it's really difficult to plan. We can never plan over the long term, over the long haul, and that is precisely what is required at this stage of the game. We need long-term predictability, long-term funding so that we can engage in long-term planning. And unfortunately, we're seeing a diminishing of a number of Indigenous languages. there are, and the impoverishment of the spoken language in many cases. And we are experiencing a lot of pressure. We need, financially speaking, we need more long-term funding. There's too much that needs to be done in short-term timeframes, and it's just not realistic. Thank you very much, Doctor. You talked about how urgent this is. And I remember that the committee welcomed representatives from the Association of Quebec and Labrador, and those young witnesses spoke to that urgency. And in fact, that's kind of what sparked the idea of undertaking this study. What can be done? I don't know if you agree, but I think that someone needs to crack the whip. Otherwise, certain nations are going to lose their vernacular, their spoken languages. What are the long-term ramifications of inaction if we don't change course and we don't adjust the funding model? Thank you again, Doctor. Response. Well, if we don't address the funding model issue, other communities will find themselves in the same plight as we find ourselves, and I don't wish that upon anyone else, upon any other community. In 2007, we started to undertake an in-depth analysis of archival documents. It took years. I took a linguistic training in order to speak my ancestral language. It took 6 years of a doctorate, 3 years of a master's, 9 years of schooling to be able to do the work that I currently do to rebuild a language based on documentation from archival records. It takes a lot of research and a lot of work. This is urgent. Other communities are going to find themselves in the same situation as us, and perhaps without the same level of documentation that's at our disposal. That's why things are urgent. And these funding models need to be adjusted. The funds need to be earmarked. They need to be released and in order to do the work that needs to be done. And we don't need 1-year funding or 2-year funding. We need 5-year funding at a bare minimum. Thank you very much.
For 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. All you who gave a presentation, I thank you all. What you said is very important, and what you said is very relevant, as you all pointed to coordination as an item. To Dr. Ida Bear first. When it comes to Indigenous peoples and the language and the Indigenous Languages Act, I look at the content. It's a good act, but it doesn't state anywhere in the act that we need to heal from past abuses and destruction of our own language. And it states that we need to work together. But our language was meant to be lost forever according to a government policy. Many people are hurting, angry, and need healing for this abuse. Can you strengthen the act by adding that financial resources should be available for healing purposes also if we are going to reclaim our language that we were forced to give up? I ask Dr. Bear. Thank you.
Dr. Bear, you're muted at the moment.
There we are. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I did a presentation just the other day, Monday, and we were talking about language and esteem, self-esteem. And the question I asked was, Who am I? Well, you can look at me externally and just say, well, you're an Indigenous woman, you're an older woman, you might be a great grandmother. And nobody can tell by looking at me that, I have worked years and years and years in post-secondary institutions as well as, which I think is very important, in the community. I too came out of residential school after spending all my youth, my childhood. I came out a changed person. So how do you have healing? Well, you do healing through the language and culture. When I went in, I was 5 years old. Already, I had the language, I had my values, the teachings from my grandparents. And when I went in, everything was different. And there was a lot of corporal punishment, abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, where you came out as a nobody, like no self-esteem. So what we're advocating through the language and culture program, like land-based education, using traditional doctors, I'm one, is for healing of the soul and spirit. But we don't get funding for it. But we've been running programs like that for a long, long time without any assistance from the federal government. It's through local initiatives. So I'm thinking in terms of like money doesn't really heal anything, but it sure as heck would help, like for us to do the work in the area of healing. For example, a lot of people say, well, today's contemporary times. The past is dead. No, it isn't. The past is just hanging over you with all its negativity, all its hurts, all its whatever it was, the colonization, turning us into Western automatons, leaving behind your identity of who you are. Like I'm Cree through and through. I do have French on my grandfather's side, and I have Scottish on my maternal side, but we all identified as Cree, culture and language. But up to 5 years old, you already have that language here. You never lose it. It's like a computer, it's inputted. It's just that psychological processes come into play where you can get it out. And that was the case for me. 1974, when I began to get involved in languages and culture, I couldn't even speak my language. I had to get it out, but there were so many obstacles, psychological obstacles, say panic, using my language because too much corporal punishment when you're using your language. Your cultural practices, when my mom used to come to visit us, there would be a supervisor. We had 10 minutes with her, and she would try and bring traditional foods, and then they would just throw it out, right? Not fit for dogs. So there was this demoralizing way of treating us. And I agree with you that within the Languages Act, I think, we need to have our doctors, Indigenous doctors, our healers, our psychologists, our psychiatrists, people like me, ceremonial people, to be paid for the work that we're doing, not just given tobacco and a piece of colored cloth. Like that doesn't pay for your food, that doesn't pay for your accommodation, because many of the people doing that work, they're long gone. The last one died a month ago. So we really don't have that pool of traditional healers that do the language and culture work. And I know that since 1967, there was a core group of people of us working towards revival of language and culture, and through the work in language and storytelling and cultural-based activities, ceremonial activities, many of us found healing, okay? And where we found healing, we got our voice to say, okay, we're going to put this aside, the Western ideology. Now we're going to spend time looking at us as who we are as a people. And we're very diverse, but there are universal principles as Indigenous peoples. We have soul. It's in our language. We have spirit. It's in our language. when we speak our language and we openly speak it, the Creator or the base Geo hears us and we begin to heal, because you need people that are healthy, that are healed, to be able to reach out to the people that need healing. And I say within the Languages Act, when I quickly went over it, I was thinking about that. And I said to myself, well, through language and culture, we get healing, land-based education, we go to ceremonies, we go to sweat lodges, we go to shake tents, we go to pipe ceremonies, and our psychologists are dreamers. They're different types of doctors. They're healers of the brain. Nobody recognizes us. Some of us have 3, 4, 5, 7 PhDs in ceremonial aspects. We're still very much looked down and say, well, you don't have a PhD from a reputable university. You didn't spend time 9, 10, 11 years doing that study. But our people have worked and lived all their lives. And what we call minopimatisuin is a good life. How do you get to that good life? Practice your culture, practice your language, eat your traditional foods, have your ceremonial name. Like my name, and it's kind of comical, my name is Kagishiasit. And I wanted a beautiful name like Yellow Buffalo Woman or Blue Robin, and all of those nice names. But when I got my name, it was Kagishiasit, meaning one who flies fast. And I told my medicine name giver, I said, I don't want that name. Well, he said, it's not me that gave you your name. It's the base together, the Creator gave you that name. One who flies fast, that's here, the soul, the spirit, because you can cover a lot of territory for healing, for spiritual teaching, teaching the language, being able to pray in a language when you're asked, or to counsel somebody who sits there and they say, I don't feel like living anymore. I don't speak my language. I don't know any ceremonies. What am I going to do, right? So you go into that whole phase, and I guess, when you had your people doing the consultation, I wasn't involved. So that part was missed. So I agree with Dr. Megan. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. My Cree gets in the way. But it's actually to look at redrafting or amendments to include that. And something? I think it's a positive thing, because back in 1967, we said we need to save our languages. How many years ago was that? Roughly 40 years. This is 2023. We've lost many of our languages. And it wasn't enough for some of us to do the little piecemeal thing that we were doing. We covered, like my colleague and I covered all the communities in Manitoba, setting up language working groups back in 83 and 84. And then once we left, because we didn't train the trainers, they died, right? And there was no ongoing work done on working with a community like the parents or grandparents, the ones that have no education.
And there's milk in the fridge.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci, Madame Idlaud. Thank you, Dr. Baer, for sharing that with us. And thank you very much today to Dr. Megan Lukaniuk and Minister Simpson for giving testimony and for answering our questions as we continue to study the issue of Indigenous languages. I know that it's a subject that has been around for a long time, and there's a certain amount of impatience with respect to it. So thank you for your testimony today. With that, we'll take a short break, panel, and prepare for the second panel. Thank you. In person, we have Ms. Claudette Commanda, First Nation Confederacy of Cultural Education Centers, and we have Dr. Kevin Lewis of the University of Saskatchewan, who may speak to us in Plains Cree, but we'll see. And I understand your mother may be involved in translation as well, so welcome. And also Dr. Lorna Williams, who's with us by video conference from the University of Victoria. So welcome to our three guests as we continue our study of Indigenous languages. The way we do it is that we ask each of our witnesses to make a 5-minute introductory opening set of remarks, and then we proceed with questions. So without further ado, and with respect to if you want to, if you don't understand some of the languages that are being spoken, for the benefit of Dr. Williams, you have a little globe at the bottom of your screen there where you can choose in which language you wish to understand, because there may be some French and there may be some Plains Cree, and it's good to set up beforehand. So with that, I will ask Ms. Kamanda to begin with a 5-minute opening remark. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Claudette Kamanda, member of the Kitagan-Zibi Algonquin First Nation. I welcome you, and I'm honored to make this presentation on the ancestral territory of my people. I hold various titles and responsibilities and roles, such as Chief Executive Officer for the First Nations Confederacy of Cultural Education Centers. I am an Indian Day School survivor. I am a representative plaintiff for the survivor class Federal Indian Day School Settlement, Special Advisor to the Dean on Reconciliation Faculty of Law, Elder in Residence, Professor, Chancellor of the University of Ottawa. I am a mother of 4 and a kokum, or a grandmother, of 10. This is my most cherished role and responsibility. Despite the various titles and roles that I hold, today I am here as the Chief Executive Officer representing the First Nations Confederacy of Cultural Education Centers. I have been with this national First Nations grassroots organizations since 2000. The FNCCEC was established in 1972. We are a nonprofit national First Nation grassroots organization born out of Indian control of Indian education. Our organization is community-based, grassroots-driven, and we are inerrant and treaty rights holders. We are independent from the Assembly of First Nations or any other political entity. The organization is comprised of 46 cultural centers which are located in every part of the country and represents the language and cultural diversity among First Nations. Our elders guide our work and support our community-based and national role as language advocates and language experts. The organization provides technical and program assistance to communities in their development and delivery of language and cultural-based education programs. As rights holders of our languages, the FNCCEC and its member centers understood the need for languages legislation to guarantee financial support for communities to develop immediate and long-term sustainable solutions for language revitalization and protection, and a right to educate our children in our ancestral languages. Despite FNCCEC for 47 years was entrusted, and it continues to have that trust, with the national mandate on the promotion, protection, revitalization, and maintenance of First Nation languages, cultures, and traditions, and despite our organization's expertise in language development and program delivery for our communities, FNCCEC was not called on to be co-developers in the drafting of languages legislation known as Bill C-91. However, our organization supports the Indigenous Languages Act. We were pleased to see our vision, our efforts, and our actions for language protection become a reality. For decades, with steadfast determination, the FNCCEC advocated for language legislation. Language champions such as Ron Ignace, Verna Kirkness, Amos Keys, to name but a few, remained constant in their support of FNCCEC and our mission for legislative language protection. Why is the Act important? What does it mean for the First Nations Confederacy of Cultural Education Centers? We see the Indigenous Languages Act as a validation of our languages. It validates the importance of our languages, the richness of our languages for cultural identity and healing. In building self-esteem for First Nations children and youth, the validation of our languages for the intergenerational transmission of knowledge. This is so critical and so important because our languages are who we are, our identity, our culture, and our life, and that connection to land, to spirit, to creator in all of our teachings. The Indigenous Languages Act is also viewed as the Government of Canada's acknowledgement of the historical wrongs which have contributed to language loss. And it is also viewed as an instrument to hold the government accountable in its obligation in supporting the restoration, revitalization, and retention of First Nation languages. An ongoing commitment for funding needed for immediate and long-term language planning, resource development, language learning. The protection of the first languages of the land is paramount. After all, First Nation languages, Indigenous languages, are the original languages of Canada, and Canadians must embrace this truth. Raising awareness on the importance and the value of First Nation languages provides the opportunity for Canadians to acknowledge, respect, and celebrate First Nations people, our histories, our rights, and to foster reconciliation, people to people, nation to nation. We are hopeful and patiently wait for the Act to provide permanent, sustainable funding which is critical need for our communities to build and foster language health, not only for today, but for lifelong. The Act must be the authority to eliminate proposal-driven piecemeal funding. Current language and cultural funding programs, criteria, and administration of funding cannot sustain nor continue to be the source for language and cultural revitalization or the eligibility for language support for our communities. Change is needed. We know there is still much work required to fully implement the Act. The implementation must ensure First Nation grassroots communities and well-established First Nation organizations who have immense expertise and lived experience in language protection, revitalization, and must be included in every stage of implementation and operations, including development on policies and funding models. Implementation of the Act and or distribution of funding cannot be delegated to political organizations. Grassroots communities and grassroots organizations are the language holders, the language speakers, the language champions. We are the frontline workers. We are the present, we are the past, and we certainly are the future. We appreciate the working relationship with the staff at Canadian Heritage, who recognize the diverse expertise of the First Nations Confederacy of Cultural Education Centres. They value the community language experts to assist in the government's work on Indigenous languages. The Act, including its spirit and intent, must be fully and digitally recognized implementation for the protection and revitalization of First Nation languages. The beneficiaries are our children today and 7 generations beyond. There remains much work to be done. FNCC sees a wide array of expertise in language development, implementation, research, program, and technical support must be integral in all aspects of the implementation of the Indigenous Languages Act. Let's work together to make this happen for our children and our youth today and 7 generations. Chimiigwech. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Commanda. I'm going to go to Dr. Lewis for opening remarks.
Nigan, kakyo kita tamskat na. Igon wisa puni hiawan tipia kapihta kwa big school. Igon ma kitchenat.
I would like to welcome the Creator for allowing us to come and present in Parliament Hill. I would like to thank for the invitation and their language. I would like to thank the Creator for giving us this language and how much we love our language. And we have a lot of people that have lost the language. And we have a lot of people that don't know where they came from, especially the creation story, even the Dene, Nakawinawak, the Nakota people. Those are the creation stories that a lot of our people in our communities, they have no knowledge of where they come from. And it is our elders that are wanting us, urging us to teach our songs, our creation stories. And we have the creation stories that include the Ice Age. And we also have the creation story where we come from, the mountains are spiritual, even the fire, the wind, the flood, even all those stories, they come from the island, from the Turtle Island. Those are the ones that we want, that, the elders wanted us to teach those in our schools to retain those languages. Even those stories that come from the climate change. We don't know what the future holds in terms of climate change. And then we ask the elders, how do we retain the language in terms of climate change? And then we are taking the opportunity to take our kids outside in terms of language-based. And then we are seeing, when we look at the sun, when it rains, we have never seen any rain in January. And then now we are running to the elders, and the elders are saying, do not be afraid. Go back to our ceremonies. Go back to our language. Go back to our creation stories. Those are the ones that are going to help us in the future. Let's go back to the creation stories. And the other thing we have to look at and focus on is the Treaty 6, our treaties. We come from our Treaty 6 territory. And our relatives, I would like to welcome her for allowing us to visit her. That is one of our relations that is coming to invite us. The work that we are doing, we have forgotten our language. We have forgotten our promises. And all the teachings that we are going back in the past, we know that our spiritual and our visionaries were the ones that came, and they prophesied that they knew that our brothers were going to come. They were coming to our country. They were coming to our Turtle Island. They were all going to come here, and they knew that they were going to work together. They told us, they advised us, they asked us to work together. We have to work together, but never forget where we came from, never forget our languages, never give up our ceremonies. But this is what I wanted to tell you, to work closely together. And our elders in the past, they've used the pipe. The pipe was always put in forefront. The pipe is the most ceremonial item that was used in terms of languages, in terms of protecting languages. And where we are trying to run is we seek the advice of our elders, our knowledge keepers. And a lot of them, we have not seen them. They're in the spirit world now. The ones that we have sat with them in the past. Love the language they've advised us. Teach your elders how to use the pipe, and this will keep them in the spiritual world. I want to talk a little bit about myself. I work at the Blue Quills University, University of Victoria. These are the different institutions that I have worked with. These are the institutions, these are the universities that are reaching out to us. They are running to us. And we have, in our own community, we have a lot of elders, and we seek and sought their elders. And this is where we have a lot of our spiritual leaders, knowledge keepers, that we seek their knowledge. Those are the ones that we rely on. I know it's Mark Miller. We sat with him today, and we presented our languages, the importance of retaining our language, that we really need to work together. In order for us to retain the language, we have to work together. And the other one, I would like to thank Heritage Canada for all the effort and all the work that they've put into the development of the Languages Act. And I would like to thank them that they have helped us in the past, and they will continue to help us in the future. And this is all I wanted to say for now, but I will want to talk about what all we do in terms of languages in my own community.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lewis. I was waiting a little bit because it's translated to English and then it has to be translated into French, so it takes a little while. But thank you very much for your testimony. And we'll now go to Dr. Lorna Williams. Dr. Williams, if you are ready, you have the microphone to make your opening remarks. If we could get you just on mute, and I think you're muted at the moment. And is your microphone near your face, your mouth? Okay, we're in business. Go ahead, please. We can hear you. Everybody should be muted, and you shouldn't get an echo.
Okay.
Go ahead and see if. Yeah.
I'm still getting an echo. I'm going to take this headphone off.
Try it again. I just saw that somebody put it on.
Okay.
Try it again.
Yeah, it's good now. Thank you. Wanosa and Squachicha to go lil wat ula shwaash and snook. Lorna Williams is my English name. Wanosa is the name that my people call me. I come from the land of the Litwet Ul in a place called Mount Currie in British Columbia. I taught at the University of Victoria and retired from there. I'm the current chair of the First Peoples Cultural Foundation. I'm the past chair of the First Peoples Cultural Council, organizations that work on revitalizing, on recovering, and maintaining the Indigenous languages in British Columbia. My work with our languages began when I lost my language at residential school. I attended the St. Joseph's Mission in Williams Lake and had to relearn my language. And it was fortunate for me that the language in my family was strong, and I lived in the old part of our village where the old people had never been to school, to English school. And And so I was able to recover and to recover my language. And then I learned English while I was in the hospital. And so as a child, I came to see the challenges, the beauty of language and communication. And so I feel that that's where I began my education. In 1971, 73, 72, 73, my village of Mount Currie was the first community in BC to take over its own education. And this was a change in government. And one of the things that that our community said was that they could see that our language was beginning to shift. More and more people were speaking English than our language, which was really different. And they said, we have to stop this. And so one of the challenges that they gave us was to figure out how to keep our language thriving. This was in the early 70s. And I'm sharing this with you so that you know what my background is. That I've been involved with K-12 education, both at the band-controlled school level, but also in the public school. I was a consultant for the Vancouver School District for 15 years. And there I saw children from across Canada in Vancouver, children who no longer had a connection to their homelands. A few did, but many didn't. And I saw the challenges there that are needed to be able to help us follow our right to our languages. And then I went to work for the Ministry of Education in BC, and then to the University of Victoria, where I finished my employment career. In 2019, I was present at the UN when it became the Year of Indigenous Languages. There was so much hope and positive talk about Indigenous languages around the world. And in 2019, I was so pleased that finally, the country of Canada was acknowledging and recognizing that our languages exist and put into place a process of our being able to work together to do something finally in a legitimate way for our languages. The challenge is a big one for Canada. Canada, who has 2 official languages, both colonizing languages that continue to colonize our people, not just here in Canada, but in many places around the world. And so one of the challenges to make something of this act, one of the big challenges that the government has is does it have the courage, the audacity, this zeal to look at itself and to honestly look at itself, at all of the policies, the practices, the habits that became entwined and entrenched that protect English and French and keep Indigenous languages down. You have to be brave to look at what those practices are, at what those policies are, because they have to be addressed to shift and to change what has become so habituated in this country. We also need to be able to look at the impositions of the Indian Act and to be able to be brave enough to change that. So what has it done? It has divided us, making some status and making some non-status. It's dislocated, dislodged, relocated people, Indigenous people. And so this act has to be able to serve all Indigenous people. That's what you've set out to do. And so it's important then for us to know what it is, what the challenges are that we face. It's, for example, today there are children who have half status. There are children who have quarter status. Do they have a right to their language? Will they be served under this act? And that's what you have to be able to look at. We need to be able to look at the infrastructure that are supposed to serve the revitalization, the recovery, the revitalization, the maintenance, and the sustaining of languages. And I want to speak here about education, because education has been the instrument that has been used to destroy, to annihilate our languages and our people, the institution of education. And so, but we need also to know that education is a powerful, powerful institution, and that it can serve to support the work that we need to do. But it can only do it if we're brave enough to redesign it, to question it, and to learn from the Indigenous people who've devoted their lives to trying to strengthen this. To give you an example, we need Indigenous language teachers in schools. There's a demand for them. Schools have used fluent speakers, our elders in our communities. They've never been recognized, acknowledged as teachers, but they do the work. They've figured out how to do it with no post-secondary training. There is not one single teacher education program in Canada for Indigenous language teachers where they can get to the education they need, the learning they need to do this challenging task, and to get a credential and to be recognized as paid as teachers. Right now, Mr. Garneau, there are teachers, many teachers across this country of Indigenous languages, and they're paid a pittance because they're not teachers. They're not recognized as teachers. And so that's why I say we have to look at the many infrastructures that are in place and to make those changes that are needed. We have currently some opportunities that I just want to highlight. One is in the province of Ontario, a few years ago, put into place a possibility for Indigenous institutions to be degree granting. That is a huge step. It's a positive step, and it could be a very important contributing force to making this Indigenous Languages Act work. We have in British Columbia many years' experience of working with every First Nations language, 34 languages, and their dialects. And this is complicated work. It requires lots of support of communities, partnerships, collaborations, but also counting on and doing the kind of research that needs to be done that right now does not exist. And so we have some examples. And it's important not then to look at yourself in government at how you stop the work, but also look at what people have been doing across this country to keep our languages alive. Because when you think about all the things that have happened that have tried to silence us, our languages continue. And it continues because of the passion and the commitment that you heard from the former speaker talk about the commitment from our elders, knowledge keepers, to protect our languages of the land.
Thank you.
So we need to be able to use that, learn from it, and to go forward and work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. We extended the opening remarks a little bit longer than normal because you had some very important things to say. We will proceed now with one round, and we'll start with Mr. Vidal for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank all our witnesses for being here today and sharing your knowledge and your experience and your wisdom with us as we debate this important topic. I'm going to focus my questions on Dr. Lewis for now, simply because some of the great work he does is within about, 45 minutes of where I live. So I want to talk about the work that you do there. Before I do that, though, I want to give a little shout out to your mom for being here and translating for us today. That's really cool to have her here with us and doing that for us. So Dr. Lewis, I know some of the things you've done, on your journey, specifically around the Kanyasek culture camp that you run out at Island Lake, and also you've developed an Indigenous language certificate through the University of Saskatchewan. I'm just going to give you my time to talk about those two things, but I would love for you to include in your explanation of the great work you do there, what some of the best practices and the things that everybody can learn from your knowledge and success at those, through those two processes that we could share in our study of the Languages Act.
Okay, ngani on hasamina. Naskumten inutik skitaman katatamano maganiasik. Kamamo pai aiguti.
In 2015, when we first started non-profit, in the beginning, when we first started Kanyasek culture camps, we did not have these knowledge keepers, the helpers for our ceremonies. Here, we have kids that are hunting, trapping, fishing, feeding the elders, feeding the community, feeding the schools, and the ceremonial holders. This is where Kanyasek originated from. In the beginning, I asked my grandma, and these are the words from my grandma. Do not exclude the young girls that are wanting to learn. The youth are crying out. They want the youth to come and teach themselves, and they want the elders to come and teach them the teachings from the land. And then my kukum said, at that point of that lake, this is where, in the winter, they used to set out the nets. Everything happened at Kanyasek culture camps. And this is where elders used to teach kids to pick berries. They used to. Oh yeah, and in we have been wanting to create our own curriculum in the native way, bringing in the elders, bringing in the creation stories that we have to learn. We have to teach these kids how to hunt and how to trap. And then in 2019, there's a little bit of money that's there. And this is going to happen now. Center of Excellence, we call that. That is our school. And here, we're teaching kids to teach the language, and we bring in our elders. The elders are the forefront teachers. And then we have the young girls that are coming in there. And then we have the female elders that come and raise the pipes there. And then we have the youth male. They come and they are taught how to lift the pipe. And these are the TP teachings. Here we also include the sweat lodge, the horse dance, and we also include the owl dance. We also include the sun dance. And then we also have the sweat lodges. There is so much to carry, and there is so much that we have to do. And the elders are instructing us, take out the kids on the land. That's where the teachings are. This is where our kinship comes from, and relationships with the land, with the sun. We address it our grandfather's son. And then the eagles, the thunderbirds, they give us the rain, the snow. They do all the work for us. The grandfathers, we address the wind as our grandfather. And this is where we address kinship. Everyone is interrelated, either be on land, water, air, and we as humans, we are all related. We are all interrelated. And these are the teachings from the elders. And even the four-legged, we are related to them. The water, we are related to the water beings. This is our curriculum. It is just like our language. We are visiting, we love each other, and we know each other. And it's all because we go back to the relationship. And we respect our kinship. We respect everyone who we are related to. This is how we look, and this is how we respect the language. That is why we are working really hard for our languages. That's the reason why we are so wealthy in terms of languages. Yeah, we are rich in our language across Turtle Island. We are very rich. We have our relations right in the four directions of our people. And these creation stories that we hear come from four directions. And this is how we offer the Creator. And we give thanks to the Creator in terms of our relations coming from four directions, the four colors of man, the four colors of print. And it is a very honorable thing when you take a child out on the land. Land-based teachings is where we want our kids to be in terms of languages. It is the teachings of the elders. It is the direction from the elders that in our school system, take the kids out on the land, especially in the winter and in the summer as well. And especially in the summer, When we take the kids out on the land, this is where we harvest our plants. This is where we harvest our ceremonial plants, berries, and this is where the elders come together with the youth and with the children. So in the summer, when we have our schools, and in the summer when we have our elders and we have our youth. Yeah. We enjoy seeing the elders coming out on the land with the youth and with the children, where they are helping and teaching each other about the land, about the berries, about the trees, about wildlife. And we know. And we have seen high suicide rates. It's because they've lost their identity. But now we have to go out and we have to help each other. We have to bring and introduce our youth into the land. And this is the good life, miopmatsun, we call it in Cree. This is what Kaniasik Culture Camps is all about. And we put all our effort into maintaining that school. In terms of operation costs, we have no funding at all while we're working for our curriculum, trying to bring education.
Tourism industry over there, and they're employing their Indigenous people that went through these types of systems. And we did the research. We went there and visited them. And the tourism industry, we know how to keep things sacred, and we know the flashy stuff that we can sell to the world. And Destination Canada had approached us saying, why don't you talk on our behalf? Bring the world to Canada. And when I was over in China, when I was in Europe, when I was in Australia and New Zealand, they wanted to know about the Aboriginal people here. What's going on over there? How are they? You know, they want authentic experiences of Canada. They want to hear our stories. So in the time of reconciliation, this is the time where I think we need to flourish. We need to show them the boat skills. We need to show them the math, the architecture, the engineering that goes into making a birch bark canoe. We need to show them the food that we have here. That they want to taste that. And I think that's why Heritage Canada, I said that in my opening statement, I thank them openly to saying we'll take this on, but we need movement because the elders are passing. There's a real big urgency here. And when we take care of that urgency, when the funding flows a little faster, it's going to benefit our people, it's going to benefit our riding, our province, and then ultimately Canada.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lewis. Very fascinating to hear you describe that education that you provide. Mr. Weiler, you have 6 minutes.
Very grateful for our witnesses being here today in person and joining virtually and sharing their wisdom, and just such a privilege to hear so many different Indigenous languages today already. My first question I'd like to ask to Dr. Williams. You were very instrumental in setting up one of, if not the first, band-run school in the country. And then just last year, the Leewat Nation signed an agreement with the federal government to have full control over how education is delivered for the nation, including control over curriculum, teacher certifications, and graduation requirements. And I was hoping you could share with our committee here the importance of this path in being able to revitalize or to sustain and revitalize the language of the Leewat Nation, and what other nations, because I know there's another nation in my riding, the Squamish Nation, is very interested in, what they can learn from this process and what we can learn as a committee as we're looking at the future of the Indigenous Languages Act.
Well, this is a major step, and in the path, and we've in my community worked on towards this since as I said, since the early 70s, and one of the things that is so critical is that we need to be able to regenerate the language in every aspect of life in our community. And school is one of them. And because school is so important, it's key. But one of the things, for example, that happens in that school is that children spend time on the land. And this is really important because language learning, in our case, has to be a reconnection to our relationships. So the reconnection with the land and everything that's on the land, and the relation that and also to assert that it's a caring and kind relationship. And so that's really important. So part of that then is the message has to be that it isn't just learning a language, it's also learning the worldview, the cultural ways of the people. And so it's a relationship with the land, it's a relationship with the ancestors, it's a relationship with people who are coming. It's a relationship with all of the areas of the community, and so that's a very different view of education from the Western world, because the Western world separates children from their families and from the multi-generations. It separates children from the land, and so for schools to be able to graduate people based on the cultural worldview is really important. It's also important, my community has always said from the very beginning, it's important for us to know that we need to exist in multiple worlds. And so one of the things that we need to be able to do is to cross the boundaries of those different worlds, and to be able to do it without losing a sense of self. And knowing your language, knowing the intricacies and the beauty of your world helps you to be able to do that, so that it's a positive experience to be able to live and engage in multiple worlds, not a destructive one that we've experienced. And so that's what communities like mine have to rebuild and reestablish. And it can be a very frightening experience, because everybody has said that education has to look like the English ways. And everybody has said that the strength of a person is how well they speak the English and French languages. And so one of the challenges that we face is to be able to see the strength and the beauty of our own languages, and for the outside world to be able to appreciate that and to see that. And so to hear the languages at this table is really critical. And Canada needs to, step that up a bit, and so that Canadians can feel and value Indigenous languages. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiler. Nous irons maintenant, Madame.
Ms. Gill, 6 minutes, please. Mr. Chairperson, I don't have any further questions. Thank you kindly.
Très bien. Alors, nous...
Very well. We'll proceed with the next questioner. Please proceed.
Qayannamek sivulangmek qayimayunga gara tusaya kangitunga qayannamek matuinna qayunga uqasaga atoklogo uqasaq pimmageugman. I just wanted to thank you to all the witnesses. Normally, I'm able to speak in Inuktitut during these sessions, and I've very much welcomed having my space, my interpreter, be replaced by a Cree interpreter so that we can hear you speak in your language. And I've very much enjoyed hearing what you've had to share, and also to thank you, Claudette Commander, for welcoming us to your territory. I think that what all the witnesses, to Dr. Williams as well, thank you so much for your testimony. I'll just ask one question. If I could ask each of you to respond to my one question. What I'm finding missing in the Indigenous Languages Act is that nowhere in it does it talk about the importance of healing. It does provide a little bit in the preamble, and in later parts of the Act, it acknowledges what Canada has done. It acknowledges that reconciliation is important, but nowhere in the Act does it talk about the importance of healing and how relearning Indigenous languages can be a form of that healing that helps to make sure that we do have a better sense of self, to improve our sense of identity as Indigenous peoples. And I wondered if you had thoughts on whether it would be important to incorporate an amendment into the Indigenous Languages Act about the importance of healing.
If I may respond, so thank you for that question, and I wholeheartedly understand why you're asking that question, and I say yes. Healing is one of the most fundamental elements that each and every day we heal. Every day, lifelong learning. So when we look at the past, this colonial past, and all this lived experiences that our people have endured, healing is so much needed, right? So much needed. And it is our languages and our culture that brings forth that healing. Absolutely. And the languages, we don't separate language and culture, right? We cannot separate our languages from our culture, and from our culture to our identity. We cannot separate it. It's all part and parcel to who we are as Anishinaabe people, or who we are as First Peoples of the land. And every experience that we have in our life, our ways of knowing, our ways of being, is so important. And we know that our people need to heal, and especially our children. And definitely the Act must provide for and must support healing, absolutely. Without language, there will be no healing. Without healing, there will be no self-esteem. There will be no, that worldview and the understandings and the traditional knowledges, or even those practices, or just that connection of the land that is so important. And I think about that word that we have in Anishinaabe Algonquin language when we say Nindaki, I am the land and the land is me. And that is where I find my source of healing and strength. So definitely, I agree that healing has to be part and parcel. It's integral, it's connected. We cannot separate it. So with languages comes every aspect of our lives. And we've heard it eloquently expressed by both speakers, Dr. Williams and Dr. Lewis. It speaks about who we are, our creation, our connection. Connection, and without healing, and how can we reconnect? We have to restore, revitalize, reclaim every aspect of our being. So healing is so important, absolutely. So Chimigwedge for that question.
Dr. Lewis, would you like to comment? And then we'll go to Dr. Williams.
I would like to commend you for asking these questions. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you look at the mental health, that's the mind. How do we heal our mind? And there's two things that we're looking at. When we look at the Mari, they call it the neurodiversity tansitagwe. There is no term in terms of in our languages. We don't have that, but there is a terminology that we have to ask. We have to resort to our elders. How do we heal ourselves? If a person is not mentally, physically, when you look at the 4 quadrants, this is where we run to the elders in terms of healing. And then when we went to Auckland 4 years ago, we went to listen to their languages. We went to do our research. And then we had the researchers, professors, directors, and all of them, whoever was involved in all those universities in Auckland, every one of us, every one of them were looking at the mental health aspect. How do you heal your people mentally, physically? How do you approach the elders? How do you do that? Even the Hawaiians were looking at us. They were asking the same questions. It's us. But it's us with the First Nations elders and how we are sitting here together, how we are looking at this legislation, the Indigenous Language Act. This is where if we start gathering, having these type of engagements, this is where we will lift our language, and this is where we will lift ourselves.
When we, I thank you so much for that question, Lori. That's a really important one. And when we design and deliver language programs to children in the school and in the communities, and especially in the communities, when it's delivered in a way that is respectful and full of integrity into the Indigenous world, and people are learning, and in that way, healing takes place. We don't have to separate it. That's what takes place. But I really appreciate your question because we have many people who are adults, particularly, who are relearning their language, who are learning their language. And it's a painful, painful process. And so in those cases, we need to be able to deliver a program that really acknowledges that and recognizes that. It's healing that has to take place, not just with an individual, but with a family and a community. I did programs, for example, for people who we call silent speakers. These are usually adults who speak the language, who learn the language as children, but because of their school experiences and other experiences, stopped using their language. And we need to create programs and strategies that work with these people, because it's a very painful process to regenerate that language. And we need to be able to focus on that, and we're not. We're not delivering programs usually for that population. And that's a huge population in our communities that we're not looking at. And oftentimes in our world, in our Indigenous world, we don't separate the institution, for example, of learning and health. But in the Western world, that's what we do. And so, again, it's really looking at all of these, the infrastructures that are in place, and seeing the kinds of changes that need to be made to support the work that we need to do to reclaim, recover, revitalize, and sustain our languages. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. J'aimerais...
Thank you very much. I'd like to warmly thank our witnesses this evening for your testimony, for having responded to our questions. You've illustrated in a very moving way your wisdom about the topic that we are discussing. We very much appreciate the fact that you took time to appear before us, to respond to our questions. And I know that we are really going to take advantage of your testimony, of having listened to you. It will help us greatly in the course of our study on Indigenous languages. It's a topic that warrants our close attention. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And on that note, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.